Wolfenstein Youngblood. Not a game you would refer to as a critical darling. However, the game is actually a lot better than the reviews would lead you to believe. But that's not what this video is about. This video is to tell you about Wolfenstein Youngblood as a speedrun. So let's get to it. Wolfenstein Youngblood is really interesting to me as a speed game. Its biggest highlight is that it's a co-op run, and given that speedrunning is normally something that's a solo activity, it's super refreshing for me personally to be running it with another person. The speedrun itself is this really interesting mix of like stealth segments, risk-reward strats, power leveling, movement, quest routing. At just around an hour, the speedrun isn't too long, and also it's a very rewarding game to complete quickly. Not to mention, 100% skippable cutscenes. How about that, man? Round of applause. So for those of you that are unaware, unlike previous Wolfenstein titles, Youngblood specifically is a co-op experience, more of a looter shooter rather than a traditional linear or narrative-driven FPS like the old games. And due to that, the speedrun is based around getting our level up to where we need to be to deal with the very difficult enemies that are present in the later boss raids and final couple missions of the game. Our ultimate goal is to reach level 20 as quickly as possible while also completing the 3 raid missions that are required to unlock the final mission in order to be level 20, which at level 20 we unlock an essential stealth perk that allows us to complete the final 2 missions much more safely and quickly than we would otherwise. Also, being at level 20 gives us about the minimum damage that we need to be able to deal with some of these really tough enemies in the final segment. And why this game works as a speed game is that you're not just farming the same segment over and over and over to kill enemies and get experience. You're doing quests and you're playing the game, which is ultimately, I think, why this run is so good. We recently just found an out of bounds that allowed us to complete a sub-quest, which cut out this 8-minute farming segment at the end of the game as well. The game has a nice flow to it where you're just doing something back to back to back, and it has this kind of frantic, I always have something to do feeling to it, where either you're managing your weapon upgrades or your character upgrades, or you're trying to figure out how you can help your co-op partner. It's a very refreshing game to run. And believe it or not, Wolfenstein Youngblood has movement. It's not something like Titanfall 2 or Celeste where you have a million options to work with, but it has a variety of movement options that we do use throughout the run. You are given a double jump, you are given some vaulting mechanics, you can do a slide, but also the first ability we unlock is a dash ability where if you're holding a strafe key and press sprint, you get a dash. And generally speaking, the friction of the ground is supposed to slow you down, but if you do that dash off a ledge, you get absolutely yeeted, and so the movement actually ends up looking something kind of like Mirror's Edge just due to the way you're whipping your camera around and dashing off ledges and stuff. It's very cool. And as you watch the run progress and as we get better at the game, you'll see this movement become more and more refined. As to right now, we're still kind of improvising as we go through levels, but it is very cool. The run even has some risk-reward balancing stealth segments at the end as well. Once we reach the final 2 missions of the game, the enemy level is just jacked up. I believe the developers just wanted people to level properly before going for the final mission, but for whatever reason, the enemies before the final mission are ridiculously high level. And so even though we're level 20 and we could deal with them, we're gonna get nearly one-shotted by most all of them. So we have to very carefully manage our resources and stealth through these areas to get through there efficiently without just completely dying. The final thing to note that I love so much about Youngblood as a speed game is the balance of power between host and off-host. Host is always important as they're loading in first, they're able to do things faster, they're generally leveling up a bit more just due to the fact they get to enemies first, but off-host also has this critical importance where there is a bug that allows off-host to do an enormous amount of damage compared to the host. And so there's a weapon that we grab called the Laser Craftwork that we can use to nearly one-shot the really large enemies later in the game. They're usually like 2 or 3 shot. And alongside all of the forced co-op segments in the game, you always just feel like you're working together and you each have a vital role to play. Another interesting tidbit about the game is peps. Peps are these power-ups that are available on a long cooldown that you can grant to yourself and your co-op partner for a limited amount of time. Once you unlock these in a game file, they're permanently unlocked for your game. So even if you delete the file where you have them unlocked and you start a fresh file, they'll still be available to you. So rather than forcing players to go into their game folders and manually delete their profile every time to start a new run, we just decided to allow this to carry over. Allowing this adds some very interesting strats and routing throughout the game, reduces grinding, and ultimately makes the run better, in my opinion. Anyway, that was your 4-minute crash course on Wolfenstein Youngblood speedrunning. I hope you guys learned something and enjoyed. Please be sure to tune into my stream as well as my co-op partner, the Fun Cannon, his live stream. We're going to continue streaming our attempts as we try to push the game farther and farther. Blood Thunder and another Borderlands speedrunner, Amerlin, are also grinding. We got some competition here too. And just to note, Fun Cannon and I do plan on submitting this for AGDQ 2020, so fingers crossed. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Peace.